It looked like I was going to have to earn my combat aviator pay the hard way before I could escape for Christmas. We planned and sweated and honed our knowledge of Nubian's defenses to the keenest edge. Paul Domer had built the bridge right beside Ho Chi Minh's front porch. This was downtown, total, unmitigated terror. It was all there. Guns, MiGs, missiles, kids with rocks, and little old antique grandmothers with shovels to smack you upside the head if you punched out and made it to the ground still alive. I was all too aware of the distinct possibility of the long, maybe permanent postponement of that cherished Christmas Eve. The weather gods refused to cooperate, and the agony became prolonged. We'd get up at 2 a.m., finalize the planning, brief the office strike mission, only to get scrubbed for weather on the way out to the ramp. Once we launched the Zen afternoon alpha strike and got weather canceled on the tankers out over the Gulf of Tonkin. Then we had to figure out what to do with a bomb load that could kill you if you tried to land with it. Another day, we went through the entire routine, briefed, launched, refueled, and got within sight of landfall, only to be turned back by the weather recce flight for a low cloud deck over the target. My nerves and everybody else's were getting frazzled. I was not the only one planning to go home at Christmas, and I sure wasn't the only one who wanted to outlast the war. I remember hitchhiking a C-141 in Alaska to get back to the war. We coasted into Japan over northern Honshu in a long, slow descent for Yokota Air Base in Tokyo. The sun had disappeared into China nearly an hour before, and the lights in Japanese countryside began to wink on. It took very little imagination for me to realize how much those lights resembled muzzle flashes. About a week before Christmas, we finally went all the way. It was an afternoon alpha strike. I kept thinking, we'll get canceled again. The weather will be bad. My jet will spring a leak or something. I won't go. But what if I do? And what if I don't come back? What about my kids? What will happen to them? We coasted in over the Red River Delta. My position in the strike package was right behind Green 16, the last guy in the wave of 16 thuds. The game plan was for the thuds to wipe out the bridge with 3,000 pounders, followed by 8 F-4s to seed the river with Mark 36s. A Mark 36 looks like a 500-pound bomb, high-drag bomb with fins on it. It is actually a mine. They are magnetically fused to explode when they sense metal. We figured the thuds could drop the bridge with their 3-granders to cut off land traffic, and we had laid those wicked little seeds on the river bottom to make life interesting for anybody who tried to boat anything across. I'm here to tell you, big boy, you ain't lived until you have gone down the slide simultaneously with 24 fighter bombers. All near transonic, all pointed at the same half-acre of real estate, every pilot looking nowhere but straight through the pipper, the gun sight, and at the altimeter, all 24 the center of attention of anybody on the ground with anything explosive under his control. Stupidity? No. Terror? No again. Then what? I'm not sure I know. Anyway, all that mattered at this moment was kill that bridge. And we did. As we rolled into the slide and started down, my last glance outside the cockpit left burned into my brain forever. A sky full of great, sharp-nosed darts, separated by dark explosions, all aimed straight down. We had been cautioned in training that the big iron fins on the Mark 36 would fail if you released them at a speed in excess of 550 knots. The aircraft bucked and shook as the bombs charged loose of the shackles and streaked unerringly for the river below. Then, in the instant before the G-forces on pullout shoved my skull into my shoulder blades and buried my butt deep in the sea, I saw the Mach meter slide past 1.1. We had to be doing over 700 knots. We were supersonic and going like a scalded ape. In a hard left turn to defeat the enemy gunners below, I strained my eyeballs back over my shoulder to see the bombs simply hanging there, all fins completely intact. The reheat is cooking. We are pointed southeastward toward the water. We'll make it. Christmas will come, and I will be here. Okay, there was more to the war than just the Air Force and Navy flying missions up into North Vietnam. There was what we call the in-country war down in South Vietnam. I think I have another map there somewhere. Yeah. The war was going on inside South Vietnam all the time. There's an Asian holiday called Tet. I think it's the Lunar New Year, I believe. It happens in January sometime. And it was coming up in 1968, and both sides agreed that since they both had the same religion and respected the Lunar New Year, that there would be no attacks made on Tet, 1968. Well, the North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong well stole the promise, and that day, every one of these little red things indicates an attack being made by the North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong on the Allied forces. About 3 months later, in April, I was lucky enough to get an R&R league trip to Sydney, Australia. I had always wanted to visit Australia. There was my chance. So the way I got down there, I had to go down to Tan Son Nhut and wait for my contract flight to go to Australia. A boyhood friend of mine, Master Sergeant Darrell Wilkerson, was the NCOIC of Explosive Ordnance Disposal at Tan Son Nhut. And when I got there, I called him up, he came over and picked me up and took me on a tour of Tan Son Nhut and showed me what those people had done to that base with 122 millimeter rockets. They had just really kicked the heck out of it. Another famous battle was the one in Khe Sanh up here in extreme northwestern South Vietnam. I think I mentioned Khe Sanh a little bit yesterday, and the only mission I flew in South Vietnam was on a trip to Khe Sanh. The Marines were defending that place against the North Vietnamese, and this was one of the few battles where you had a pitched battle between the regular North Vietnamese army and the good guys in the South. It was a disaster for the North Vietnamese. We repulsed the attack, and they lost quite a bit of people and a lot of equipment. I wanted to mention some more here. Any questions before I go further?
We got about 6 minutes.
Okay, go ahead.
I heard that Hanoi was one of the most heavily defended areas in Vietnam.
I sanction that.
They had something like, in a 50-mile radius, they had more anti-aircraft weapons than Germany had in all Europe in World War II.
I've heard that same statistic, and having been there, done that, got the T-shirt, I believe it. I want to just briefly mention 3 of the famous war heroes of the Vietnam War. There were thousands of war heroes over there, and they weren't just guys who were flying airplanes. But there was a mission flown by Major Bernie Fisher. They were striking a target in the Ashall Valley, which is not all that far from Khe Sanh. And one of his wingmen, Climb A-1 Sky Raiders, one of his wingmen went in. But the guy survived the crash, and he jumps out of the burning airplane. He's over here between the burning airplane and enemy forces in the trees. And this little airstrip there was not very well maintained, plus it was covered with debris of all kinds. And Bernie knew that there was no way the helicopters could come in and pick up his buddy. Jump Myers was his name. So he lands on this impossible little runway, and Jump comes sailing up over the wing, and he pulls him into this greenhouse, closes the canopy, and takes off again. And for that act, he was awarded the Medal of Honor. Another Medal of Honor was Bud Day, this guy right here. He got shot down in the F-100 pretty early in the war, and he was hurt when he ejected. And when the Viet Cong picked him up, they broke one of his arms and otherwise abused him. But he managed to escape before he was too far north of the DMZ, and he made his way all the way back to the DMZ. But he was hurt so badly and was disoriented, he just kind of wandered for days. And then he got recaptured, and they took him all the way to Hanoi. At one point, he was in the same room with John McCain. Everybody knows who John McCain is, right? You know, one of Arizona senators, and he was a Navy fighter pilot. Another guy, well, Bud was awarded the Medal of Honor for his heroism as a prisoner of war. Another guy, Leo Thorsness, and he won his Medal of Honor for bravery in battle. He was a weasel pilot. He flew the front seat of the F-105G, and he had a bear, they called him, in the back. Guy that operated the radar and so forth. They were on a strike up there one day in a 4-ship. He sent 2 ships north, and he and his wingman went south. This wingman gets shot down. And the guy's hanging in a parachute, and Leo discovers that there's a MiG-17 on the way over, and he's afraid that guy, he's going to try to shoot his buddy in a parachute. So he goes over and shoots him down. And then he stays, he's getting low on fuel, but he sticks around to fly high cap while they try to bring the rescue forces in to pick up his buddy who's has already punched out. He did that, and then he went to the tanker, got some gas, and he came back up, and when he gets back to the area, there's 4 MiGs. And he attacks them, and he gets a probable on one of them, and chases the others off. Yeah? Question?
No.
Okay. And so, that was the day and the mission that he got the Medal of Honor for. However, 2 weeks later, he goes back up on another mission, gets shot down and taken prisoner. And he did not know that he'd been awarded the Medal of Honor until he got out of the prison camp. Any questions? Then I want to point out a few more of the airplanes that also fought in the war besides us. A-4 Skyhawk, flown by, it's what John McCain was flying the day he got shot down in October of '67. Next one is the F-8 Crusader, beautiful airplane, good air-to-air fighter, could also carry some air-to-ground ordnance as well. The F-8 Crusader. The A-6 Intruder could carry a huge bomb load. It had really excellent avionics in it, and they flew a lot of single-ship missions off the Navy carriers in the Gulf at night in the Hanoi area. Yeah.
What is it that the planes jump?
Those are high-drag bombs. Remember I mentioned a while ago the Mark 36 seeds? They look just like this. This is a 500-pound high-drag bomb. And when it comes off the rack, those fins pop out, and it makes the bomb slow down real quick. That way you can drop them real close to the target without fragging yourself. If you did that with a slick bomb, that bomb would go off right beneath you. But with a high-drag bomb, it's going to go off way back behind you somewhere, outside or right there. Any other questions? Somebody else got a question?
That's the same question, isn't it?
Okay. The A-7, another good bomb. Those are high drags. The F-111, also known as the Aardvark, run over there on a TDY basis, can haul a big bomb load. That dude was fast too. There were the Fat Birds, the O-1, the O-2, and here's a picture of the OV-10 Bronco. There's a nasty drinking song that the guys still sing about the Bronco, even though it's no longer an active duty. Helicopters, the Huey. And I have to show you this other helicopter because my brother was an Army helicopter pilot, and this is what he flew, the OH-58 Kiowa. And last but not least, the bombers. B-26, Korean War vintage, and the B-52.
You said they've got 107, you said?
I saw a figure that said they're going to haul 107 500-pounders.
That's amazing.
Okay, guys and gals, it's been a lot of fun. It's Fighter Pilot Stream. I get to talk about myself and all of my heroic acts, and I got a captive audience. Yeah.
I've heard the Air Force is planning to retire the B-52 somewhere around 2045. By the time that happens, it will have served for over 90 years.
Sound like a T-38? I've got a song about the B-52. It's old girls a half a century old. But I can't sing it here because it's got to come with dirty words.
All right, everybody give them a round of applause, please. All righty, room 10 hut. Dismissed.
Go.